We are live.
We're live.
Okay, thank you. This is, good morning, everyone. This is the House Rules and Executive Nominations Committee. It is 8:08 on the morning of March 9th, March 3rd, Thursday morning. We're going to have a public hearing on a number of bills, and after that, we will also vote to re-refer a few. The bill order for the hearing is as follows. We're going to start with House Bill 847. House Bill 976 has been withdrawn, so we won't be doing that. And then it will be House Joint Resolution 6, House Joint Resolution 5, and finally House Simple Resolution 1. So with that, I'd like to ask Delegate Saab to come on and explain his bill. House Bill 847. Delegate Saab.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. For the record, I am Delegate Sid Saab, representing Anne Arundel County, District 33, here before you for to testify on House Bill 847, General Assembly term limits. Our founding fathers never intended for public service to be a career. What they had in mind was citizen legislators that understood the issues and were in touch with their communities. Some will say elections serve as term limits, but we all know that's not entirely true. The power of incumbency, money and name ID plays a huge role in many people just getting reelected. And also point out that we should not be dealing with bills that have conflict of interest. Obviously, no one is going to vote themselves out of office. I believe that the voters deserve a chance to weigh in on this and let them have the ability to say whether we should come back or not. Also, I'd like to point out that this bill is not about what I personally feel about term limits or what you personally feel about term limits. This is just giving the voters the chance to weigh in and say whether term limits are something that they want to implement in the state. Our governor has term limits. Our county executives have term limits. Members of county council have term limits. So nothing is going to collapse as a result. Not to mention that many new legislators or senators will come in with fresh new ideas. This bill suggests 3-4 term as I believe is reasonable. And for those of you who are running for us in this particular term for re-election, the 3 terms doesn't start until the end of the next term. So even if this bill passes, the 3 term starts after the end of the term, which ends in 2023. So with that, I respectfully ask the committee for a favorable report on House Bill 847. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the sponsor? I don't see anybody with their hands up. If you want to speak, maybe you can unmute and let me know. But there are no witnesses signed up to testify, although a number of people have weighed in with their favorables or unfavorables. There are 12 people that signed up to just say that they're for the bill without any explanation. And so that concludes the hearing on House Bill 847. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
House Joint Resolution 6, Delegate Fisher. Are you here?
It looks
Yes,
like
Delegate
Fisher connected.
There he is.
Here.
Good morning, Delegate Fisher. You're up. Could you
Thank you.
explain your House Joint Resolution number 6, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the House Rules Committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Mark Fisher, and I'm here to present HJ6, United States Constitution Amendments Convention, Limitations on Federal Power. This joint resolution states that the General Assembly applies to the United States Congress for an amendments convention to be called pursuant to Article 5 of the United States Constitution as soon as 2/3 of the states have applied for a convention to propose amendments to the United States Constitution that impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for officials of the federal government and for the members of the United States Congress. Delegates to the convention from Maryland may not propose amendments that do not address the goals listed in this joint resolution. The application constitutes a continuing application until at least 2/3 of the legislatures of the states have made application for an equivalently limited amendments convention. Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, I'm very proud to say that in the state of Massachusetts, 2 committees have passed out this very same HJ6 bill. Somewhat of an epic development here with the folks at the Convention of States. Once again, the purpose of this amendment and this particular House joint resolution is to have fiscal restraint, federal overreach, and term limits. Obviously, as everyone knows, doesn't matter whether it's a Republican president or a Democrat president. We have both presidents of both parties, when they get in, they issue diktats, which are executive orders, which is not unlike the kings that we fought to be independent from. We have a federal bureaucracy that is actually making law, and of course, Congress has given them that authority in some cases. In other cases, they are just making law. And we have federal spending that is out of control. Pretty obvious. We have the highest inflation rates since the late 1970s and early 1980s. And that is because of the government, without question. And it's because of the federal government actions. And so, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, for all those reasons, I would very much like you to seriously consider this House joint resolution, particularly given the fact that this is not a blue state or red state matter. It is a matter for all the states to consider. I would like it, if possible, Madam Chairwoman, we do have a list of people. If you would allow me to call them in my order, but that's only if you would allow me to do so.
No, I think I'm going to follow the order that they signed up in so
Okay.
that we can
That's
move
fair enough.
forward.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
There's a large number of people, so we're going to have a time limit of 2 minutes for each person to testify.
Understood. And they know. So they're very organized, believe me.
Okay, so I'm going to, first of all, are there any questions for the sponsor? I don't see any, so we will proceed to the witnesses.
Very good.
Okay, the first witness is Michael Riley. Michael Riley. Is Michael Riley in the room?
I am here.
Okay, please, 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, my name is Michael Riley. I'm State Director for Convention of States Action in Maryland, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization dedicated to rebuilding a culture of self-governance in America. We are over 28,000 Marylanders who have signed up in support of our resolution, calling for a Convention of States under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution to discuss and propose constitutional amendments involving a limited set of topics. These topics are federal fiscal restraint, federal overreach, and term limits for federal officials, including Congress. Our numbers have doubled in the last 2 years because Marylanders are coming to realize that serious challenges require serious tools. And Article 5 Convention of States is a powerful tool. Once 34 states have passed the same resolution, we will have the convention. Any amendments to the Constitution proposed by the convention would have to be ratified by 38 states to become part of the Constitution. My colleagues will give you more details about why we need an Article 5 Convention of States and how it works. America is ready for the convention. I believe that a Convention of States is the right tool to bring us together as a country. When the convention meets, the whole thing will be put under a microscope. It can't run away. Pundits will argue about every point in the debates. There will be a tornado of social media activity, and there will be no con. America will hold a national discussion about who we are as a country, where we are, and where we're going. Given the challenges we face, this discussion is long overdue. If Democrat-run Massachusetts can pass the resolution, clearly, so can we in Maryland, and it's time. Please support our resolution calling for an Article 5 Convention of States and bring transparency to the process, if nothing else. Bring it to the House floor for debate. It's that easy. Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Well, I'm going to take all the witnesses and then see if there are any questions. So, okay, so we will go on to the next witness, Leslie Jenkins.
Yes. Dear Madam Chairman, I am Leslie
2
Jenkins.
minutes.
I am a volunteer for the Convention of States. I was born and raised in Maryland, and most of my family still resides here. Article 5 was given to the citizens of this nation as a tool to be used when their federal government has become out of control. Our founder said that this method of coming together as state leaders on behalf of the people to debate the listed proposed amendments in a resolution like this one will probably never be resorted to unless the federal government should show symptoms of betrayal. We are progressively falling backwards to an elitist system where there is an autocracy instead of self-governance. History does repeat itself, and I fear that we are spiraling backwards at an alarming rate. We are asking you to use Article 5 instead of a last-minute ditch effort to expedient measures to try and rein in the federal government. We feel the federal government has crossed the line and it needs to be reined in. If we fail to act, we would then be at the mercy of some radical and ineffectual measures that have no guarantee to retain our freedoms. I applaud the founders and their wisdom to provide this safe and peaceable measure by calling for a convention of states. The abuse of power, when allowed to go unchecked, brings about greed and corruption. Article 5 is the remedy, and you could provide that remedy for Marylanders. This is indeed one of the greatest beauties of the system, and every candid mind should understand the wisdom behind Article 5. The constitution of any government, which cannot be regularly amended when it has gone off the rails, reduces the people to 2 dilemmas. They must either submit to its oppressions or bring about amendments by standing up for their freedoms. The Convention of States and its petition signers have seen the progression towards the destruction of our country. We are asking you as our state leaders to vote in favor of HJ6. It is time that we all come together and stop the party politics. It's not the solution. We are all Americans, and it's time to unite and secure our liberties and stand up for future generations. A house divided cannot stand, and we need to start working together for the good of our nation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Seth Lipko. You have 2 minutes.
House check. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I'm Seth Lipko. I live in District 32, and I represent 650 other supporters in my district. I've invested my personal time in the Convention of States movement because of my children and my concern for their future. I want my kids to grow up in a better world than I was raised in, with brighter futures and more bountiful opportunities, and I'm sure all of you do too. But what I've seen in the area of financial freedom isn't just stagnation, but digression from that goal as a result of the fiscal irresponsibility of the federal government. This isn't a partisan issue. Regardless of which party has the majority, we the people are at the mercy of their expensive ambitions.
Hi. No,
With
it's
each-
fine.
Please mute yourself, whoever's interrupting. Thank you.
Kathy.
With each passing administration, their agenda takes priority over economic stability, and it's at the expense of the hard-earned incomes of families like mine. The answer isn't increased taxation. We can't spend ourselves out of debt. The answer isn't more federal assistance programs. They cost hundreds of millions, and they result in our greater dependence upon their existence. I mean, just look at Social Security. I hope all of you will be able to benefit from my contributions into that broken program, because I won't. So what's the answer? It's you. It's you agreeing to hold a national convention of states where you can discuss which fiscal restraints to place on the federal government. Every average American family has to learn how to budget and prioritize needs as a basic survival skill. And every business must do the same in order to stay open at a profit. And it's time that the feds start holding that same responsibility as the people who have to fund their irresponsibility. They've had decades to fix this problem and have continued heading in the wrong direction, and they must be held accountable. And you, the delegates of Maryland, hold the power to enforce that accountability. And as our representatives, I ask you to support a convention of states to discuss imposing fiscal restraints on the US government. For the sake of our children, grandchildren, and even our great-grandchildren at this point, who are already in bondage to the accumulating federal debt, we must put an end to this irresponsibility. Please move HJ6 out of committee and be part of the solution.
Thank you. Now I gotta turn off the, yes, your time is up. Thank you very much. Cody Tristan White. Mr. White. Are you
He's
here?
being admitted right now. He's coming in.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White. Cody White, are you
He's
here?
being admitted right now. He's coming in.
Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Would you have 2 minutes? Please begin.
My name is Cody White. I am 10 years old and a homeschooled 6th grader from Mechanicsville, Maryland. You're probably asking yourself, what is a 10-year-old doing here today? What does he know about governance and passing laws? Well, I'm here today to support Bill HJ6. The Founding Fathers built America to have freedom from the excessive power of the monarchy of England. The founders and framers made sure that a government system would work to protect people's rights and freedom. The Constitution was written, and federalism was born in America. Federalism is the separation of power between the state and federal governments, with the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. This way, the state and federal governments will not have too much power over the other. This country is a democratic republic, a hybrid system between democratic and republic government systems. The founders and framers wanted the best out of these two systems with the purpose of protecting the rights of people as the number one priority. Why? Because without people, there is no government. The framers made sure that factions would not be created because they could have too much power and control of the government. The framers knew that when people get too powerful, they may become greedy. As a result, they stay in power for too long. They become detached to the needs of people. Today, we children mostly hear and read news about Biden versus Trump, Democrats versus Republicans, war, inflation, corruption. It's all about pointing fingers. We, children, do not want politics. We want good education and great leaders to teach us. You are our leaders. You are our examples. I humbly ask you, delegates, please support HJ6. Please do not forget what our founding fathers and framers set out to do. Do not let one government go unchecked. Protect us, your children, your future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Brown. Miss Jennifer Brown? Is Jennifer in the room?
She was admitted to the meeting.
Okay.
Ms. Brown, I see you've unmuted yourself. You can go ahead.
Jennifer Brown, all right, if you're here, you please start.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Brown. Please start your testimony. You have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Jennifer Brown, and I'm a political science instructor and Convention States volunteer for District 35. My name is Jennifer Brown, and I'm a political science instructor and Convention of States volunteer for District 35. In 1 year, I've watched a dramatic shift in political ideology among my students. Once supporters of centralized federalism, many have shifted their views. I listen to stories of job loss due to vaccine mandates or business shutdowns. I hear about the cost of gas and rising food and retail items and the effect it has on students working and attending school simultaneously. In 2018, this body passed legislation that funds state community colleges, but if federal prices force policies so high that students have to choose work over school, what benefit is funding that will never be used? Your work for the citizens of Maryland is erased by poor policy decisions and federal overreach. Students are surprisingly unified on this topic, regardless of party affiliation. What they see happening at the federal level is awakening them. They are paying attention and are anxious for the opportunity to vote. They don't want the United States to become a nation where freedom is trampled and economic prosperity ceases. Like my students, I want to see something done to curtail federal overreach. As a former legislative aide here in Annapolis, I have seen that process work. Each of you are far more inclined to listen to your constituents than any federal representative, and powers not specifically granted to the federal government are reserved to you or to the people. As Maryland representatives, you have the jurisdiction and obligation to exercise those powers. That is why I'm asking you to support HJ6. The convention where you will talk about these matters with other states is vital to reining in federal power and restoring the proper balance of federalism. A disproportionate assumption of power at the federal level hinders good policy making and decision making at the state level. Please move HJ6 to the floor for favorable for a full debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next would be Coley Brown.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, please proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, committee members and Madam Chairman. My name is Coley Brown. I live in District 36, where I represent 1,327 supporters as our Convention of States captain. I want a floor debate on HJ6 to discuss having Maryland participate in a national convention of states. This will allow Maryland a voice on fiscal responsibility, federal overreach, and term limits. These are popular topics with Maryland voters. They're popular nationally, where 17 states have already agreed to participate in a convention of states to discuss these topics and these topics only. Let me clarify why. The Convention of States is not a partisan movement. This is not the first convention of states or without precedent. Our beautiful Bill of Rights came from the first convention. The convention is not chartered to pass any constitutional amendments. The convention only has the authority to discuss these topics. If the convention agrees to any recommendations, these recommendations go back to each respective legislature, that's you, to consider approving. For a conventional amendment to be accepted, 3/4 of the 50 states legislatures need to agree to that amendment. If only part of an individual state's legislature disagrees, then that state will not approve the convention's recommendations. Opposition from only 1/2 of the legislatures and 1/4 of the 50 states will stop an amendment from being adopted. Most importantly, if Maryland does not attend the convention, your voters' voices and your legislative opinions will not be heard. I implore you not to censure this floor debate. 28,000 of your voters asked for you to move HJ6 out of committee and are watching for the results. Let this bill come to the floor to debate its merits and its flaws. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to see if in order that we can clear the waiting room, if any of the members have questions of this first group of people that have testified. And I see no questions from any of the members. So we will thank the people who testified and let the next group into the waiting room and from the waiting room into the Zoom. So next we will go to the next witness is Robert Betts, B-E-T-Z, Robert Betts.
Madam Chair, doesn't seem that Mr. Betts is in the waiting room.
He's not in the waiting room? Okay,
Mhm.
well, we'll skip him then and we'll come back if he arrives. Mary Jane Perot.
I'm here.
Thank
Good
you very
morning.
much. Please start. You have 2 minutes.
Good morning. I'm Mary Jane Perot, a lifelong resident of Montgomery County and a volunteer with the Convention of States. I'm trying to do my part to preserve the freedoms that I've always taken for granted. Many citizens believe that Washington has become too authoritarian, and it's inconceivable that Congress would restrict its own power. We're like a ship that has taken on water. The country is out of balance, but we have the tools to right the ship through Article 5 Convention of States. America is losing our economic freedom. The freedom, the federal government is spending the country into an obscene amount of debt. Imagine 9 stacks of dollar bills from here to the moon. That's our national debt, $30 trillion and growing. If unchecked, this will be devastating to the country for generations to come. Perhaps a solution would be an amendment to limit spending to a percentage of the previous year's gross domestic product. This is one of 3 possible items that would be discussed at a convention of all the states and gives us not only the right, but a duty to act. As state legislators, you're more closely aware of our needs and how to best allocate resources in our community. Yet the federal government is becoming more dominant in the decisions of the states through mandates and funding decisions. Personally, many of my friends are worried about the harsh divisions within the country and they don't know what to do. And I believe that a convention of states will unite the country again through a national debate of all states, a discussion that would be like pumping water out of the ship's hull and watching her sail upright, strong, and free again. Please vote favorably for HJ6. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Bibby.
I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, please proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Good morning, dear committee chair, the Honorable Chairwoman Healy, committee members, and fellow Marylanders. I'm sometimes known as an Uncle Sam impersonator, and with that, I say, I need you. I, Rick Bibby of Leitersburg, Maryland, and Uncle Sam need you to join us in a bipartisan effort to save our state and our country from its own procrastinating self by approving HJ6 out of committee and to the floor for full debate. Today, speaking for myself and over 1,100 petition signers from District 2 in Western Maryland and many others watching online, I address those of you that might object to or have qualms about an Article 5 Convention of States being held. Some will say that we're going to be unleashing a Pandora's box upon the country that will destroy everything that's long been held sacred. I stand against that claim, believing that our founders built in this Article 5 Convention to allow you, our state legislators, to request needed corrections to save our union from the selfishness and stalemates of blind partisanship in Washington, D.C. If I still believed in, that our U.S. House and Senate members would make these changes on their own, I'd not be testifying here today. And that same desire to be heard was once held in 1776 by 56 regular citizens with an average age of 45, and not one of those 56 would ever have been called a statesman. Yet they found the courage to believe in something much bigger than themselves, and they put it all in writing in less than 7,000 words. I now better understand the way they felt in 1776, and I'm asking you to allow the voices of everyday Marylanders to be heard on this matter, to shape a positive future for generations of Americans yet to come. By simply focusing on the founders' immortal 7,000 words and not getting lost in our current version with 1.4 million words, you can allow that to happen. This government of, by, and for the people must live on forever. And your committee's bipartisan part in saving our country starts right here, right now. By simply voting HJ6 as favorable for floor debate, you'll be standing with a groundswell of 28,000 Marylanders and millions of Americans nationwide. I need you. Our state needs you. Our nation needs you. And it needs us now and needs all of us now. Because what truly matters is we can restore unity to our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. Thank you very much. And the next witness is Nicole Weekly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Dr. Nicole Weekly, and last year I voiced my concerns for growing irresponsibility of government, fearing that, if left unchecked, we are on a path toward destruction similar to the country that my family fled from. This concern has increased, and frankly, we're approaching a time that I feel where we cannot turn back. Over the last 15 years, I've worked with children across home, school, and clinic settings with leading nonprofits and universities in our nation. As a scientist practitioner who cares deeply about education policies, I believe that this resolution is a long-standing solution to the heart of the issue. Children, particularly those in marginalized populations, have often been described as canaries in a coal mine because negative outcomes will often show it them first, and watching these populations allows for us to quickly adjust policy. I've never before experienced the despondency that I'm seeing in the field of mental health and education at this time. The top-down policies that have come from Washington for generations have created a cascade of secondary and tertiary effects that impact, without fail, those who are most at risk. This has never been more evident than during the last 2 years, where education and intervention services have been desecrated, while referrals for mental health issues are through the roof. I'm now fielding concerns of suicidal ideation for children as young as 8, which is ridiculous. The CDC data for 2020 indicates that suicide was the second leading cause of death, ages 9 to 14, and children between the ages of 9 and 19 were 18 times more likely to die from suicide than they were from COVID. Yet our recent child health and education policies are myopic and void of database decision-making. I joined this bipartisan effort to enact Article 5 because though our system is struggling, I still feel we have the ability to course correct. We know that focused and individualized interventions lead to the greatest results for our clients, and I would argue the same goes in politics. Strong relationships between the elected and their constituents lead to greater results for people and communities, and I think it's time we bring government back to you here at the state. Thank you for your time, and please move HJ6 forward to the full debate. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Delegate, I'm sorry, James McQueen Senior is the next witness.
Madam Chair, I haven't seen him in the waiting room.
Okay, well, why don't we take another request for questions? If there's anybody in this last batch that you would like to ask a question, please let me know, raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hand for questions, so we will proceed to the next witness, Carrie Wolford.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Carrie Wolford, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Carrie Wolford from District 1. Service to our country runs deep on both sides of my family. My generational grandfather, Michael Paw, crossed the Delaware River with George Washington, along with his brother Meshach Paw. While fighting in the Revolutionary War, they also camped at Valley Forge. The sacrifice they made to this country is still within my soul. I think about the stories. I hear about the conditions of our soldiers at Valley Forge. The soldiers were starving for lack of food. If they even had shoes at all, they were riddled with holes. Their uniforms were torn and tattered and not appropriate for long, cold winters. No blankets to keep them warm, and sickness was all around. Many of the soldiers froze to death. They were willing to sacrifice their lives in order for freedom. They were at times not receiving just compensation for their service. So at the end of the war, George Washington made sure that they were given parcels of land in Garrett County. I will cherish that land until I die. Many of the men in my immediate family have also served in the military. I do not take their service to our country for granted, and that is why I volunteer with Convention of States. It is the solution that is as big as the problem. My family was always willing to shed blood for our inalienable rights, not for a federal bureaucracy to take them away with the stroke of a pen. They fought for the right to self-govern, to earn their own way. Many Marylanders are in the fight to preserve our freedoms and to use Article 5 of our Constitution. We want to know whether you are willing to stand with us. We do not want you to sacrifice our state, your rights as legislators, or our rights, and hand over your power to some crazy un-American agenda in Washington, D.C. We once united against the British in the Revolutionary War. We were united in calling the Lake Federal Convention. We need to unite again, now, before it is too late. As a descendant of generations who were willing to give everything that they had so that you have liberty and you have the right to your individual pursuits of happiness here in Maryland, I am asking you to use for the right to vote.
Okay.
Please on HG6. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll go to the next witness, Will Zwart.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, who wants to be remembered? My name is Will Zwart, and I live in Queen Anne's County. As you can see, we have quite a few Article 5 supporters online today, but there are quite a few more who couldn't be here. I'd like to acknowledge some of them now. There's Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, George Mason, who first proposed Article 5, George Washington, James Madison, Milton Friedman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and of course, Abraham Lincoln. The man who led the charge against slavery and racism supported a convention of states. But who opposes it? Well, among few others, groups of radical neo-fascists who've been instructed by their wealthy benefactors to stand against our civil rights. Many more have given no position on this important issue, including Senator Mitch McConnell and Governor Hogan. Donald Trump has also not given us his endorsement. Nevertheless, we the people persist, and we ask you to join not only an organization that the majority of both parties support, but that is the largest grassroots movement in American history. And why shouldn't you? The founders wrote Article 5 for you, state legislators. It will reclaim your full authority, money, and influence from the federal government and give it all back to you. It can send your agendas and careers surging forward and gain you the respect and support of the whole nation. Look at Massachusetts. A committee of mostly Democrats defied expectations and approved this resolution just last month. Now, millions of Americans across the country are applauding them. Even Republicans are applauding Democrats. That happened with Article 5. So I urge you to approve this resolution and increase your authority, your state's wealth, your own influence, cement your political career, and make history remember your name, because it will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Gail McCowan.
Good morning.
Good
Can you hear me?
morning. Yes.
Great.
Please proceed.
I am Gail McCowan, and I'm a Baltimore City resident within Delegate Clippender's District 46. I'm a one-year volunteer with the Convention of States, and I'm a retired lieutenant colonel of the U.S. Army. And I am here to ask you to vote HJ6 to the joint resolution supporting Article 5 Convention of States out of committee for a proper floor debate this year. Service members who take an oath to the Constitution truly understand the meaning of service to something greater than themselves. This virtue seems long lost on career politicians in Washington, D.C., who exhibit little desire to serve their constituents. The federal government has become much larger than our founding fathers intended. New committees, new commissions, new policies, new agencies, and new regulations. And with each new initiative comes the need for funding, while creating new solutions to old problems, when many of those solutions should be solved right here at the state level. Marylanders believe this too. Our petition numbers are growing steadily within the state. I have attended many events representing Convention of States, and Maryland citizens and Maryland veterans are talking, and they are determined and ready to exercise Article 5 for Maryland and for the people of Maryland who are tired of supporting federal politicians who don't support their desires and fail to represent them in any way once they get elected. If we, the people, can't get our federally elected officials to work on our behalf nor hold them accountable, the check and balance answer is Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. And as a supporter and participant within the Convention of States, the state of Maryland would then have the ability to address limitations on out of control federal overreach. So I ask you to please hear your Maryland veterans and vote favorably on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you.
Next is A. Stephen Patton.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Mr. Patton. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for your service to our state and your constituents. I am Steve Patton, a resident of Carroll County, where I run my small business and raise my family. For the past 4 years, I've had the great honor of volunteering alongside fellow Marylanders, a very small fraction of which you are hearing from today. As a Convention of States Maryland volunteer, I've spoken to thousands of Marylanders that are upset with our out-of-control federal government. Marylanders, I might add, of many different political stripes. A recent national poll asked, when making policy or legislative decisions, do you feel that the federal government takes into consideration the will of the people? The poll found that a majority of Democrats, over 50%, a majority of Republicans, over 75%, as well as a majority of those without a party affiliation, 60%, agreed. The federal government has no interest in their opinion. They feel they are being governed without their consent. I think an important part of why the Convention of States movement here in Maryland and across the country continues to grow exponentially is recognizing that the second clause of Article 5 of our Constitution is there so that the people, we the people, have a path through our state legislators to put an out-of-control federal government back in a constitutionally constrained box, a box the states that formed this federal government intended to reside. I ask the members of the committee to please take to heart the testimonies you have heard today given by your fellow Maryland citizens, just regular citizens that love their country, not paid lobbyists nor experts, just passionate citizens that fear their country as founded is on the brink, and they know that you, their state legislators, have the constitutional power to right the ship. And please remember that you are only hearing from a small fraction of our hundreds of active volunteers and tens of thousands of supporters here in Maryland. Finally, I ask the committee to find HJ6 favorable for further debate among the complete House of Delegates. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next is Elliot Weekly.
Can you hear me?
Are you Elliot Weekly?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Elliot.
Hello, I'm Elliot Weekly. I'm in 6th grade and live in Hollywood, Maryland. My dad is in the military and we used to move around a lot. In fact, I lived in
I'm sorry. Are you Nicole or are you Elliot? So
She is Ellie. She just, for some reason, you guys allowed me back in instead of her Zoom. So this is Ellie.
Okay, thank you.
Can she start over?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes,
Okay,
start
awesome.
over. Go
Yeah.
ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Elliot Weekly. I am in 6th grade and live in Hollywood, Maryland. My dad is in the military and we used to move around a lot. In fact, I lived in 4 different states by the time I was 5. We don't have to move around much anymore, but when we did, it was kind of hard. When I was little, most of the time it was just me and my mom. Moving around and missing my dad was not easy. They say that being a military kid makes you tough, and I can see that, but I am grateful we are here in Maryland and my dad doesn't deploy. I've learned about American government and just wrote an essay about federalism for the COS Maryland Essay Contest. Learning about federalism was interesting. Did you know that government was designed to have power split between branches of government and levels of government? This was done to make sure that no one person became too powerful, and so the states were able to make decisions with their people. Unfortunately, we've kind of messed it up. Right now, the federal government makes too many decisions and ignores the states a lot. My parents don't want me to worry about this, but I know my dad is standing up as a Marine. His job is to protect the Constitution. The First Amendment protects the right to practice your religion, and that right should not be taken away from you just because you're in the military. And that seems to be happening now. My parents also don't want me to worry about what's happening with Ukraine. But that's hard too. My family is Ukrainian, and my uncle is stationed in Germany as a Green Beret. My uncle deployed a lot to Afghanistan, and I worry about him having to go back to war. Until this summer, America was at war my entire life, and I'd like to know what peacetime is like. I'm testifying today because I know you're supposed to listen to me. I learned about COS and how it will help people and states get their ideas out there, and I think that's a good thing. My dad always tells us teamwork makes the dream work, and I think we need to work together as a team to help our country and our people. Thank you.
Your time has expired. Thank you very much. Members, we have 2 witnesses left on this bill, and then we'll be finished with this one. So we'll go back. Mr. McQueen, I believe, has arrived. So we had to pass over him before. So James McQueen is the second to last witness. Mr. McQueen.
Yep. Thank you. Delegates, I'm James McQueen, born and raised in Maryland. I'm the Southern Maryland Regional Captain for Convention of the States, and I'm speaking for our region's 3,158 supporters. How did we end up here? The Constitution of the United States' sole function was to define the exercise of government and limit governmental powers. History has shown federal government bureaucracy adds burden and limitations on our people. Today, the amendment of the amended Constitution is 3,000 pages. Civil servants, civil authorities do not pledge to a government, but principles of our Constitution. How can anyone pledge an oath and truly understand everything in a 3,000-page book? What does your oath mean to you? We escaped Great Britain's ruling class due to the tyranny and overreach in religious persecution and founded this United States of America based on the tenets of freedom from government rule. The rich elites are killing our free society with malice and controlling everything in our culture and our federal government bureaucracy. Today, many see the American flag and feel the owner could be a terrorist, an extremist, not a proud patriot. Don't silence the 28,000 Maryland patriots that are counting on you to hear their fear, their grief, their hope. As we in Southern Maryland say, shuck the bureaucracy so our nation can turn from its path of destruction. Why can't we stand up for principles of the Constitution, vote for HJ6 to move out of committee onto the floor for an honest debate? Article 5 is our founders' answer to living in tyranny by the federal government. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The last witness is Mark Mackler. Mr. Mackler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee. My name is Mark Meckler. I'm president of the National Organization Convention of States. And this morning I was doing some research about Maryland and Maryland's role in the ratification of the Constitution. And Maryland played a fundamental role. In fact, Charles Carroll of Carrollton was known as the first citizen. He was the first senator from Maryland to the United States Senate. He served in the Senate there in Maryland, a body that obviously many of you are familiar with. In fact, he resigned from the United States Senate when Maryland passed a law saying that one could not serve as a state official and a federal official at the same time. So he believed that your state was more important than the federal government, and I think most of us would agree. When debating matters of ratification, he wrote in a manuscript the following: "In matters of government, experience is a better guide than theory. If time and experience shall discover defects, and what human institution is free from them, this Constitution provides a remedy. They may and they will be corrected when really felt." Can any of us argue today that we haven't seen a federal government out of control? Regardless of the administration, be it the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and many others, the overreach is self-evident. Today, you have an opportunity to pass HJ 6 onto the full floor for consideration. That's our ask today, that you stand in the tradition of the great founder, Charles Carroll of Carrollton, and address this matter before the people of Maryland. Over 28,000 Marylanders have directly asked you to do so. And I would implore, in their honor and the honor of Charles Carroll, that you do so today and you vote to forward HJ 6 to the floor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Delegate Shalega, please unmute yourself and ask a
Thanks,
question.
Chair. Thank you, Chair Healy. Just a quick shout out to Ellie Weekly. Great job. I too am a military brat, so thank you for, being the family and supporter of military people. We love that. But this question's for Mark Meckler. You said, I hear that Massachusetts has passed this. What can you tell us about that? Are they the only state, and are there other states across the country that are considering this?
Just a correction, Massachusetts recently passed it out of committee, a committee that was comprised of 14 Democrats and 3 Republicans. So it has not yet been on the floor for a full vote. It takes 34 states to call a convention. So far, 17 states have completely passed the resolution. There are several more pending right now that we expect to pass in the next couple of weeks. So we're past the halfway mark.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Mr. Meckler.
Chair,
Any other questions?
yes,
Delegate Fisher.
Thank you,
You're not
Chair.
a member of the committee, so.
Understood, and I know that, and I do appreciate. I just wanted to say very quickly, Chairwoman Healy, that the young people who are speaking here won the Convention of States essay contests, and they wrote these essays completely on their own. So I just want to give huge kudos to them. I also want to say that we are honored this year to be joined by the Honorable Mark Meckler, who is the founder and president of the Convention of States of the United States of America, and really honored that he's here today. So I really want to thank him for his time.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Any other questions from members of the committee? If not, I just want to note that there are a number of unfavorable witnesses who submitted written testimony or just signed up to let us know officially on the record that they oppose, and all of that is on the website. So that concludes the hearing on House Joint Resolution 6. Now we will go to House Joint Resolution 5, Delegate Cox. Is Delegate Cox in the room?
I'm here, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members of the committee.
You have 4 minutes.
I'm sorry?
You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members of the committee, it's an honor to present House Joint Resolution 5, the remembrance of the attack of Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was a very grave day in history, as we remember shall live in infamy. We presented this last year because of the 80th anniversary on December 7th, 2021, but because of the special session, was not able to be heard at that time. The resolution is bipartisan, it's straightforward, and it's unifying, particularly this moment in time when Ukraine is being invaded by Russia and the world in Europe once again stands at the precipice of war. This resolution remembers those who fought bravely in World War II. They gave themselves so that we could be here today. And we seek to honor them with an enduring gratitude for the lives, the thousands of lives that were interrupted, changed, and were given because of their great sacrifices. The resolution says as follows: whereas December 7th, 2021 was the 80th anniversary of the unprovoked attack by the Imperial Japanese Navy on the United States at Pearl Harbor, and whereas on December 7th, 1941, Japanese aircraft attacked facilities, naval vessels, and aircraft of the United States, damaging vessels of the U.S. Pacific Fleet and destroying 188 aircraft of the United States. And whereas 2,333 members of the armed forces of the United States were killed or mortally wounded, and 1,143 members of the armed forces of the United States were wounded, and 68 civilians were killed, and 103 civilians were wounded in the attack on Pearl Harbor. And whereas President Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared the day of the attack on Pearl Harbor, quote, a day which will live in infamy. And whereas on December 8th, 1941, the U.S. Congress exercised its constitutional authority to declare war on the Empire of Japan. And on December 11th, 1941, on the Nazi regime of Adolf Hitler, thus formally initiating the involvement of the United States in the war that would greatly shape the 20th century. And whereas 400,000 men and women of the United States died in defense of our nation in the sacred I should say more than 400,000 died in defense of our nation and the sacred freedoms acknowledged in the United States Declaration of Independence and the Constitution to end the scourge and spread of Nazism and Japanese imperialism. And whereas after close to 4 years of bloody conflict in the Pacific and the European theaters, World War II ended on September 2nd, 1945, with the Japanese surrender to General Douglas MacArthur aboard the USS Missouri. Whereas there are fewer than 100 survivors of the attack of Pearl Harbor still living. There's less than that as the days go by. And whereas in Maryland, Corporal Wilbur Jack Myers, age 98, from Hagerstown, Staff Sergeant Melvin Hurwitz, age 96, from Frederick, and Lieutenant Adolf Abe Chvastovic, age 95, from Silver Spring. 3 World War II veterans of the European theater representing Maryland traveled to Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 2021 for the 80th anniversary of the attack. And whereas the Navy Belle of the USS Maryland, which was present during the attack on Pearl Harbor, has resided on the Maryland Capitol lawn in Annapolis for close to 60 years as a lasting testimony to the connection between our great state and the courageous defense of our nation from the USS Maryland on that date, which will live in infamy. And whereas Maryland residents, including Everett, are not—
Delegate, your time is up. And I know that all the members have read the resolution, so if you could just summarize.
And in summary, Madam Chair, we have great heroes in our state, which we seek to identify and honor in the resolution, including the names that I've read and including the additional names in the resolution. And for all of these reasons, I would respectfully request an honorable and favorable report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions for the delegate? I see Chair Wilson. Would you like to ask your question?
Just briefly, Madam Chair. Delegate Cox, I have a question. So obviously this is a tragedy in our historical context, and it may make some people uncomfortable. Some people, depending on their dissent, may actually be uncomfortable with us preserving and memorializing this tragedy. Are you okay with memorializing and teaching something like this that may make some citizens in our community feel uncomfortable, although it is history?
Trying to understand your question, Mr.
It was a yes or no question. Are you fine with memorializing and teaching something like this, the attack on Pearl Harbor, although it may make some individuals uncomfortable, depending on their descendancy?
Well, Mr. Chair, war, as you know, is always uncomfortable.
Yes, sir.
And I don't believe for a second that we should cover up and ignore the heroic deeds of men and women of our country who have given their all. You can walk through Arlington and see their graves, and to seek to fail to remember those who died for freedom, who died to preserve the liberties of the world, to ensure that the atrocities of that time were rectified and would never again occur. I would be more concerned with not recognizing that memory.
So it does sound like you agree that history should be taught no matter how uncomfortable it makes people. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate
do.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? There being no other questions, all the other witnesses have chosen not to testify, but just left their position of support. So that concludes the hearing on House Joint Resolution. We proceed to the last piece of legislation on our agenda for today, and that is House Simple Resolution 1. Delegate Cox, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's an honor to present House Simple Resolution 1, Articles of Impeachment of Governor Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr. I'm a Republican. Party loyalty and personal affection and precedents of the past must fall before the arbiter of men's actions, the law itself. No man, not even the President of the United States, is above the law. For our system of justice and our system of government to survive, we must pledge our highest allegiance to the law and not the common frailties of men. President Nixon worked and worked to try to cover this thing up so it wouldn't come to light. Those are the words of Congressman Lawrence J. Hogan, Sr., July 25th, 1974, in his opening statement for the Articles of Impeachment in the hearing of President Richard Nixon. At the federal level and in every state, including Maryland, our government is formed with a system of checks and balances. That is to say that every government has equal and shared power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government, each providing oversight of the other. In addition, those branches of government operate on the basis of law, which has been properly presented, debated, and passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. Lawful state government does not operate on the basis of a gubernatorial decree. There is no king here in Maryland. Co-equal branches of government operating on the basis of law protect citizens from abusive tyrannical government. This system has led us to freedom and prosperity, and is this system that was broken by Governor Hogan during the COVID executive order lockdowns. The Maryland Constitution stipulates that the legislature has the ability to impeach a governor when it becomes necessary. Indeed, it must originate here in the House. On this basis, the articles have been presented and brought to the body for consideration. The facts are stated as follows. Article 1, the Declaration of Rights provides that all government of right originates from the people and founded in compact only and is instituted for the good of the whole. Governor Hogan has repeatedly and notoriously violated that compact by issuing orders that are restricted and protracted beyond the intent of the legislature when it granted the governor authority to restrict certain freedoms during a state of emergency. Since March 5th, 2020, Governor Lawrence Hogan Jr. has issued orders requiring religious facilities and businesses to close, declaring some businesses to be non-essential, ordering citizens to stay in their homes, and restricting citizens' right to travel, and limiting the rights of citizens to assemble and exercise their First Amendment liberties. On November 2020, police were required to enforce orders limiting the rights of assembly at private family Thanksgiving meals. And Governor Hogan boasted of a, quote, snitch line that he established to allow people to call into state authorities to report on their neighbors having Thanksgiving Day celebrations. At the same time, Governor Hogan has individually and through staff awarded procurement contracts based on political relationships, misspent Marylanders' tax dollars on unusable COVID-19 test kits, and intentionally misled the legislature and the public on the status of those inadequate test kits. And these malfeasances demonstrate contempt for the Constitution of Maryland and the limits that it places on the authority of the office of governor. You have the articles in front of you. There are 6 of them. They include such facts as the fact that the governor established in the second floor of the State House high visibility police units to interfere with the lawful and constitutional authority of local sheriffs and require them to violate the rights of Marylanders. It included a burn on read messaging application to seek to cover up conversations which, according to the Washington Post, included COVID-19 communications. In fact,
Delegate, your time has expired. Can you please summarize?
Thank you. And in fact, Madam Chair, I will wrap it up with saying, in fact, in this exact context, my office sought a Public Information Act request, which was denied by the governor because of his statement that the COVID-19 task forces were, quote, non-governmental entities, and therefore the information was not available to be shared with the public. This is exactly the kind of cover-up that government is never to do. And for those reasons and the reasons stated in the articles, I would respectfully ask a favorable report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, thank you very much. There is one witness in favor of this, that is Vince McAvoy.
Madam Chair, Mr. McAvoy is not in the waiting room.
Okay, well then that concludes the hearing on House Simple Resolution 1. And that concludes the hearing portion of our meeting. At this time, I would like to make a motion for to accept the withdrawal of the Delegate Kittleman's House Bill 976. We've received a letter. Is there a motion? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. That bill is withdrawn. Is there a motion on House Simple Resolution 1?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to move.
Delegate Buckle, the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move unfavorable on House Simple Resolution 1. I do not feel that it meets the standards for impeachment that would exist under Maryland law and would be unprecedented under the circumstances to proceed at this time. It is a political issue, not a legal issue worthy of impeachment and that extraordinary remedy under our system. So I would move unfavorable on House Simple Resolution 1 at this time.
Is there a second on the unfavorable motion?
Delegate seconds.
Chairman Barve seconded the motion. So we have before us a negative. I'm going to take a voice vote. All those in favor of the negative of rejecting House Simple Resolution 1. Does someone want a roll call? I'm sorry, I can't hear whoever's speaking. I can't hear you. Who's speaking?
That was background noise, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay, thank you. In that case, I'll proceed with a voice vote. All those in favor of the unfavorable, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Please say no. The ayes seem to have it. The ayes have it. That bill has been given an unfavorable. And with that, we have a list of bills that have been requested to be re-referred to some of the other standing committees. And the Vice Chairman will make that motion. Delegate Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move to re-refer the following bills to the appropriate committee, Madam Chair. That would be HB 1391, 1396, 1397, 1398, 1400, 1401, 1403, 1404, 1415, 1416, 1419, 1423, 1424, 1425, 1428, 1433, 1438, 1400, 1442, 1444, 1446, 1447, 1448, 1450, 1451, and finally, Madam Chair, 1461.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, all those in favor of the re-referrals, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Those bills will be re-referred to the appropriate committees. And that concludes our work for today. Thank everyone for coming and for working so hard and paying attention to all of this.